Continuing with section 2.1, the level of overall economic activity, we look at our third key question: how do economies fluctuate? We'll start by watching a short video.
Let's take a journey to a galaxy far, far away, on the planet Econoworld. I want to welcome you to the nation of Macro, where everything is big. Steaks are big, 72 ounces big. In the nation of Macro, movie theaters seat 10,000 people. Large iced coffees are big, 31 ounces. Wait a second, that's how big they already are. 31 gallons, now that's big. Nobody's falling asleep during economics lessons in Macro. Chocolate bars are twice as nice. Everything is big in Macro, and so is this lesson. Let's imagine for a few minutes that you're riding around for 4 days on a big unicycle in the business district of the city of Growth, which is the capital of Macro. It can't be that difficult to ride a unicycle, you tell yourself, with great anticipation of sitting on a seat way up high in the air. Here's where the unicycle takes you, and what you observe along the way. As you pass through the center plaza of the city, you enjoy a quick look at the downtown Central Park with its soft green grass and a peaceful river flowing through it. A few moments later, you pass by a factory that makes chocolate. Now this is really starting to get interesting. Either that or the dark chocolate I just ate is starting to kick in right about now. As you pass by, you turn and gaze into some large windows in the front of the factory that allow you a rare look at the activities taking place inside. What's going on in there, you ask yourself? Inside the factory, several machines are going at a solid pace, all connected to each other, and an assembly line is at the end of those machines, transporting chocolate bars towards an area where they will get wrapped and boxed up for distribution throughout the land of Macro. Workers are spread out across the factory, and most of them seem busy, although you notice several of them standing in a corner goofing off and blowing bubbles. For a quick second, you think to yourself, wow, what an easy job those people have. You finally pass by the whole factory and continue on your way through the city, wishing that you could take some of that chocolate with you. As you continue to daydream about chocolate, you happen to pass by the mall, noticing that it's not empty and it's not full. So this is what happens on your first day of riding the unicycle through the city. The second day, you get back on your unicycle again. As you pass through the city center, you travel the same path as before, and you're most interested in looking in on the factory to see what's going on inside. This time, as you pass by the front window and gaze into the factory, you can tell that every machine is going at full steam. It looks as though the machines are going faster this time. You look around the building, searching for the people who were standing in the corner goofing off before, but they aren't there. Every single person appears to be working very hard. And you even notice more people in there than you saw before. Chocolate bars are flying out of the machines onto the assembly line. All of a sudden, you see one of the machines break down because the workers are working it so hard. You're quite happy on this day because you just got a raise at your job, and you're on your way to the mall to spend it. When you get to the mall, you can barely find a parking spot for your unicycle because there are so many people there. So this is what happens to you during your second day of adventures. Now it's the third day. You're riding on your unicycle through the city of Growth in the nation of Macro. As you pass by the factory, you gaze into the front window once more to see what's happening in there. This time, the machines are barely going. Almost no one is working in there. Very few chocolate bars are coming out. After you pass the factory, you pass the mall, and you notice that almost nobody is there. Where did everybody go, you wonder? On the third day, things aren't looking so good. Finally, it's day 4, and you're starting to really get in great shape now because you've been riding this darn unicycle over and over again through the city, which is no joke. Your curiosity swells, and you ride past the factory. As you do, you gaze into the window. But this time, you can't see anything because the window is boarded up. Once you adjust your eyes, you can see that over the window is a sign that says for sale, and you realize that your beloved chocolate factory has closed down. The phone rings, and you take the call while you're writing. Although everything is big in the nation of macro, your mood is definitely not, because this is a call from your boss, and she tells you that business is slow and then lets you go. As you pass by the factory and continue to ride through the city, all you can think of is how many chocolate bars you're going to need once you get home. As you pass by the mall, you notice that there is no mall. It's been demolished by a wrecking ball. What a rough day this has been. Thankfully, you wake up the next day full of energy. You once again ride through the city, and you discover that not only has the chocolate factory started up again, but there's a new mall, where the old one used to be. People are starting to drive in and park, and things are looking up once again. Today you stop for a big iced coffee, and then your cell phone rings. As you take the call, a really big smile covers your face as a recruiter tells you that you have a new job waiting for you as a chocolate salesman. So what we've been talking about is the business cycle.
Firstly, I hope everyone picked up that he was on a cycle to demonstrate the business cycle. It's pretty clever. Seriously though, it was a useful summation of the business cycle. Now, this is how we show it visually, and this is straight from your textbook. We have real GDP on the y-axis and time on the x. We then see the cyclical nature of real GDP over time. It increases and decreases and at various speeds. The dotted line is the trend line, which marks potential GDP. Now, I should say that potential GDP with inverted commas, because this is an economic term, and clearly we can see that real GDP can go above potential GDP. So, more correctly, this is the amount of real GDP that can be expected when the economy is at full employment. Another odd economics term that you will get used to. Full employment does not equal 0% unemployment. Rather, it is assumed that in a healthy, growing economy, there will always be some level of unemployment, usually between 4 to 6%. This is called the natural rate of unemployment. And reductions in this rate in the short term can account for an economy producing beyond its potential. We'll have a quick look at the 4 stages of the cycle. It's useful here to realize that there are many different terms used to classify the stages of the cycle. So if you see them, it's good that you know what they mean. The expansion, or recovery, is the slow, steady growth that countries want. It implies lowering unemployment, steady growth, and some, but not too much, inflation. The peak, or boom, is where the economy produces to its capacity, its physical capacity. As more resources are employed, there are shortages, leading to a high rate of inflation. Prices are going up. The contraction, or recession, is when the real GDP decreases. A technical recession is where it decreases for 6 months or more. Resources become unemployed, and therefore there is less pressure on prices, and the prices increase more slowly, or they may fall. And the trough, or depression, is where the real GDP bottoms out. More resources are unemployed, and there is a stronger likelihood of deflation. A way that I like to think about the different phases of the business cycle is as the seasons of the year. A boom is like summer. The sun is shining, everyone is out and about, doing things, enjoying life. It doesn't seem like there will ever be hard times again. The contraction, or recession, is the autumn leaves turning brown and falling to the ground. Things aren't growing anymore. Winter represents the trough. Everything is grey and miserable. People aren't happy. And then spring represents the recovery. From the deadness of the trough, new growth starts to shoot. Better times will come again. Now, for a link back to some previous knowledge that we've done, we can consider the potential GDP line, that dotted line, the dotted trend line, to be similar to the PPC. So when potential GDP rises over time, as it should, and as it did in the diagram, we can also see a gradual shift out in the PPC of an economy, like so. This is what long-term growth would look like. Now, 3 more things that we need to know about the business cycle. it's not regular. We can't say, oh, well, there was a recession 4 years ago, so we're due for another. It doesn't work that way. For example, Australia has not had a recession for 25 years, though we did just narrowly avoid one during the global financial crisis. And that example also shows that expansions generally last longer than contractions. I would hate to imagine an economy shrinking for 25 years, whereas an economy growing steadily for 25 years is much more common. Now, this point is important to remember, as when you see them visually, they're often drawn in a way to suggest that the two phases are of equivalent length. People just draw the squiggly line, up and down. And finally, many of you would have made the connection already, but there is quite a strong correlation between employment and real GDP. They both rise and fall together. We will see other correlations in the future. One more quick item in the syllabus that we must get our heads around: the distinction between a decrease in real GDP and a decrease in real GDP growth. It seems very simple when I explain it now, but people will get it wrong. You have to be careful and precise with your words. A decrease in real GDP means that total real GDP is now less than before. The economy has shrunk. In contrast, a decrease in real GDP growth simply means that it is not growing as fast as before. This can be seen in the table below. 4.5% growth in 2012, then to 3.3% growth in 2013 is a decrease in real GDP growth, but the economy is still growing. Whereas the negative 1% growth in 2015 is a decrease in real GDP. The economy has shrunk. Okay, that's all we need to know about the business cycle for now.